Hey everyone, Scott Hansen here from NFL Red Zone. I hope you're checking out 1 hour of 5 Yard Rush, one of the best podcasts on NFL football in the UK.
What is happening? Oh, what a horror. Do you know what? I'm having one of those days today that everything that can go wrong will go wrong. And that is exactly what is going on. How are you doing? Patreons, and this will be eventually going out onto the network probably about a week or so later. So apologies for the rushed intro there. It didn't go quite as well. I actually, then just to really compound this error, was just finishing up the quarterbacks, and then all of a sudden had gone ahead and realized I'd not hit record. So it is one of those mornings. I'm having a bad hair day. That doesn't help. That's hence why I'm wearing a cap. So yeah, it seems like everything that can go wrong will go wrong today. So here we are. We're here talking about rookies. I'm going to dive into as much of this as possible. This might have to be a two-parter to stop this from being too long. And yes, as I said, this is for the Patreons. This is being recorded on Tuesday, the 29th of April. This will be going out on the network about a week or so later as a taster to see what you kind of get through the Patreon cast. As we deep dive and think about processes, it kind of gives you an idea into my brain and sort of how we're looking with things. So here we are. We're going to look at things in a bit more detail and really dive into these positions, and I'm going to give you a good amount of context here around all of them. We're going to start with the quarterbacks. I think we can get this done fairly quickly, and what this means for fantasy football. We know that Cam Ward is the only quarterback really worth starting. I've got him in the tiers. You can see up on the screen here. I've got them color coded. If you want to join the Patreon, you have access to these. It's patreon.com/5yard rush, and you'll get more episodes like this. The link is below. It is just £3 a month to join, and there are higher tiers if you want to, and we'll get you involved in what we do here. And you'll get access to a lot more tools. You'll get access to the Fantasy Football Playbook when that drops really, really shortly. You get access to a lot more sort of tools, spreadsheets, and bits and pieces to help you prepare and get ready for your fantasy league. You'll be able to do your own custom cheat sheets and everything else for your custom league settings. We are going to talk about all these rookies. We're going to start with Cam Ward. Cam Ward is a player who, no surprise, was the 101. He's a player that's going to be the only quarterback of significant interest in Superflex drafts this year because he is going to walk as the day one starter. However, for me, he really is similar to Jameis Winston and Caleb Williams. So for me, he is going to really struggle going into that hero mode, and he's going to need that coached out of him. He will really bomb the ball downfield, but he will also turn the ball over a lot. PFF had his turnover worthy play rate at 7.5%, which is really high. But he has got good passing range. He has got all the throws. He's great from a clean pocket. He's great when pressured. He is also particularly good from, with results of a high hit rate of first downs or touchdowns. Over half his throws were resulting in first downs or touchdowns, which is huge. Great on the run, great throwing outside. Well, he's great on the run, having it like he can scramble pretty well. What I will say is when he throws outside the pocket, his completion rate and on target rate is the lowest of all the quarterbacks in this draft class. And also his interception rate outside the pocket is the highest. So actually he does struggle outside the pocket. And with this offensive line probably not being as great as it should be, he's going to struggle. He also holds the ball a bit too long, 2.93 seconds from snap to throw. And that's going to be a real struggle for him. So he will throw the ball downfield. He'll have a lot of learning, and he doesn't have the best supporting cast here. I think he's someone who year one is going to finish as a potential starter in Superflex, but not a starter in one QB leagues. And I think there is an opportunity for him to finish potentially in that sort of 10 to 12 to 14 range if everything goes right for him. But he's going to need a lot of investment, a lot of time to get there. But it is going to be quite a while. We're then going to move to Jackson Dart. Jackson Dart, for me, going in the first round, there's two schools of thought. People think, oh, well, there's investment in him. He's going to be the future. My other take on this is that, well, the general manager and the coach could be gone this year, and they could clear house, and that could really scupper any plans. A new GM could easily come in and draft a new quarterback next year. They've still got their first round pick next year. They could still be really bad this year, and if they are and they clear house, that doesn't help Jackson Dart. He is in a position here where people go, oh, well, the investment's in there for him. But yeah, if it's a whole new GM who's not judged by past picks, it's not going to matter. So I think for me, there is a bit here that we kind of need to take, and he is very much a risk. He's also really needs to sit for 2 years, and that is ultimately where my opinion is. He is a system quarterback. He was pretty much in the Lane Kiffin school of QB, and as a result, he does need a lot of help here. Very good in the red zone, 1 sack and 50 red zone dropbacks, 0 interceptions, 83.7% on target rate in the red zone, which is phenomenal. But he is very reliant on play action. Over half of his dropbacks came in play action, and he actually needs to do a little bit more out of the shotgun, pistol, and other formations. He's also going to need to rely on, he's not great in that intermediate zone. So 22.1% of his throws were 20 yards or further downfield, which is huge by a really long way. So you're talking about nearly a quarter of his throws were downfield, which is just nuts. You're not going to make that many throws downfield in the NFL. 55.4% of his throws were shorter than 10 yards, which is the lowest rate in this class. So really, you're talking about only half of his throws were in that short to intermediate range. And that needs to be cleared up, and he needs to get better there because he wasn't that great in that sort of 5 to 15 yard range, which is where you get your first downs. And actually, they're going to need some time to really get used to people getting in his face, getting pressured, and getting the ball out with a quick release, and finding a slot receiver, and finding a dynamic tight end, or finding bits and pieces here. And on the New York Giants, he's going to need that more and more because, this is potentially someone that if it did manifest that he'd start, it'd be great for the big wideouts and it'd be great for those pieces. But this scheme potentially is one that utilizes running backs and running backs underneath quite a bit. And he's going to have to learn how to do that. He doesn't know how to do that. So that's something he's going to have to work on quite significantly. I don't think there's any guarantee that he is a starter in this league. There's every chance he flames out because of the fact that the GM and the head coach could move on. And if that happens, and they draft a quarterback, that's going to be the end of Jackson Dart. And he'll have a similar-ish career path to Kenny Pickett, where he'll bounce around on teams and get traded, and he'll be on 5 teams before you know it. But the one player I think who has a real opportunity to start and gain a starting job here is Jalen Milroe. I actually love the landing spot. Sam Darnold is effectively on a 1-year prove-it deal. And we've seen what Sam Darnold has done on the good and the bad. We've seen a bit of both. Now, what we're looking for here in terms of Darnold is, can he cope when he doesn't have a superstar cast around him? He's got JSN. He hasn't got much else. He is going to need a lot of help, and I don't think he's going to get a lot of help this year. So has that Sam Darnold matured, and has he become this quarterback that can, take a team to the playoffs and really thrive when the supporting cast is average at best? Or is he going to regress back to what we saw in New York? And that's the question. We don't know the answer. I don't know the answer. There is as much chance that he is a success as he is a failure. And that's why he's got the contract that he has, that the Seahawks can effectively get out of this contract this year. And that's why they drafted Jalen Milroe. Jalen Milroe is someone who has got, takes him in a completely different dynamic. He is that rushing quarterback. He rushed for 33 touchdowns in college, rushed for 20 just last year. He will have designed runs. He does have a lot of athleticism, and he's a great kid. In terms of his character, in terms of his demeanor, he is the first person to show up and the last person to leave. The problem he has is he is very much a developmental player. He is going to need a lot of time to sit and work. Now, that great thing about having Darnold is there's absolutely no pressure, and taking in the 3rd round, there's absolutely no need to rush Milroe. He does not need to start right away. So if the Seahawks are getting to this point where they're really struggling, they've got 4 or 5 wins on the board, Sam Darnold's not getting it done. They could easily end the season, throw to Jalen Milroe, see what they got, like what they got, and can actually start him next season. It's actually a really nice route for Jalen Milroe to be successful in the NFL. And I think for me, he carries the most fantasy upside due to the rushing, but also from an opportunity to start in this league. I think for me, I'd much rather have Jalen Milroe than I would over the Will Howards, Tyler Shooks, and Jackson Darts, because the pathway for me is a lot clearer. Even though the investment is less, I still think that the Seahawks were smart with this. I think they knew what was going to happen and they waited because they knew they could get him in the 3rd round. And why waste a 2nd round pick when you can spend the 3rd round? That doesn't mean they value him any less. It just means that he's there and he's available. So that's kind of where I sit with him. We now got Will Howard. Now, Will Howard fell to the 6th round, which is absolutely abysmal. And I wouldn't normally be talking about him, but he is on the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I'd say at the moment, he's probably QB1 over Mason Rudolph. He had a phenomenal end of season, especially second half of the season last year, when ended up winning the national title. It's interesting how many people passed on Will Howard. It is really interesting how many people passed on Will Howard. And there is a concern there. And it's very rare that I would talk about a 6th round pick being anywhere near relevant. So for me, I'm kind of a bit skeptical. I kind of at this point where I'm like, well, okay, there is a chance that he could easily start in the NFL next season. But there's also a really good chance that he won't. And I think that the Steelers not drafting a quarterback till round 6 tells me they have a plan. Whether it's Aaron Rodgers, whether it's something else, there is a plan, right? You're not going to sit there and start with Mason Rudolph and no one else on the roster at quarterback. And now Will Howard taking him in the 6th round and think, oh yeah, well that will do. We'll just roll with these guys. That's not going to happen. The Steelers are a smart organization. They're a very forward-thinking organization. There is going to be something in the works, whether that is Aaron Rodgers, whether that's a trade for another quarterback, whether that's something else. I don't know. All I know is there's a plan, and just because we don't know what the plan is doesn't mean there isn't one. Having said that, it is a plan. It's not real yet. It hasn't happened. If the plan falls through, there's every chance Will Howard could start. The landing spot is about as good as it gets. Even with Aaron Rodgers, if Aaron Rodgers is only going to play a year, maybe 2, he's not going to play much more. Will Howard has a chance here, but he's going to have to really show it and show it early. The next one is Tyler Shook. He obviously lands in a great landing spot and with great draft capital, 2nd round. And I think the draft capital is really pertaining to the fact that the Saints don't see Shedeur as a fit. And so because they don't see him as a fit in terms of skill set, they really need to sit there and find someone who can start in case Derek Carr is out for a significant amount of time or even the season. There's rumors that he will be out for the season. So with that in mind, there is every chance that Tyler Shook can play next year and could earn the starting job. And you've got to like the opportunity. Downsides is this: he played 7 years in college and he only threw the ball 951 times because he was always injured. Before 2024, he had not appeared in more than 7 games in any season. Yes, last season he did. He stayed on the field, right? 62.7% of his passes, 3,195 yards, 23 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. They're fine numbers. They're not anything that I'm really particularly worried about, but this man has broken his fibula, he's broken his left collarbone, he's broken his right collarbone, he's broken his collarbone. To give you the story on Tyler Shook, he was in the 2018 recruitment class alongside Trevor Lawrence. He's already played 4 seasons in the NFL. He backed up Justin Herbert at Oregon in the opening 2 seasons to start his career. Of all the quarterbacks in this class, despite playing 7 years in college, only Jalen Milroe threw fewer passes. He, against Power 5 opponents, his 70% on target rate was the 2nd lowest in this class. When he was blitzed, he only completed 58.4% of his passes. When he was pressured, he only completed 42.3% of his passes. These aren't great. His air yards per attempt with 9.2 was 5th in this class. He doesn't really scramble. There's a lot really to look at Tyler Shook and think, even if he starts, is there enough fantasy upside? And there isn't. There isn't enough upside. I've got him in as a flex play. I think because any person who's going to get games in the NFL probably is a flex, especially in certain games. But in a division where the there's been significant investment on the edge from the Falcons, the Buccaneers have one of the meanest defenses in the league, and then Carolina are getting better on defense as well. You're looking at those three teams. He's got to play those 6 times. And you look at his injury rate, I really am concerned for Tyler Shough in terms of a long-term durability exercise. He's going to be 26 when he starts next season, if he starts on opening day. So, yeah, for me, I'm a little bit concerned. That's it. I just think I don't see any upside, and I just see drawbacks. So, for me, I would kind of look at this draft and say, I'll take Cam Ward if the draft pick is reasonable. I'll take Jalen Milroe on a shot. I'm looking at Dart, Howard, and Shough, and I'm thinking I'm not taking any of these guys in round 2 and let other people take them, because I think the risk to reward is absolutely cooked. So I'm probably fading and I'm out on all of them. And then we've got guys like Dylan Gabriel who could start. Listen, and I like Dylan Gabriel in the sense of, for me, he played over 64 games in 6 seasons with UCF, Oklahoma, and Oregon. He has over 2,000 career attempts. He reminds me that those kind of numbers are very much like Bo Nix numbers. And look how well Bo Nix did, because he's kind of been through it all. But I look at this and think that only 3 quarterbacks have thrown more passes than Gabriel entering the NFL. And you think, wow, that's amazing. He's going to have all this experience. But I also think, why is it that he never jumped to the pros? And it's obviously because of 2 things. One, he doesn't have that ability to win. And the second thing is the fact that he's 5'11". And that's a real thing at quarterback. He's not 6 foot, and he's going to struggle to see over offensive lines. So Dylan Gabriel is someone who is a dart throw, and if for the right price, he's absolutely worth the start. But I think for me, it's very, very difficult to invest significant capital in him, even if he is the starter, because I can see him getting benched very, very quickly. We'll see what happens. I think for me, if I looked at a race between Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders, I think depending on the scheme and the fit and the playbook, there's every chance that Shedeur Sanders wins that out. But either way, I think, to be honest, the long-term Browns QB is not on this roster. It will be next season when they've got 2 first-round picks. I don't see either of these guys making the impact. So, the way I see the Browns working is that Deshaun Watson's out for the season. He will be cut at some point. If he's not cut in the off-season, he'll be cut the following season. But he'll be off the roster soon enough. He won't play another game for the Browns, in my opinion. I think that Kenny Pickett will get traded when he loses the job to Joe Flacco. I think Joe Flacco will play the majority of the season. They might want to throw it to one of these 2 guys if they're doing a good enough job in camp to see what's available. And that could happen as an end of season Browns aren't contending kind of plot vibe. If the Browns are contending, that's absolutely not going to happen, and Flacco will see the season out. Or if Flacco gets injured, then you've got the Gabriel Sanders kind of shootout. I think for me, Shedeur Sanders is the more polished. I think he's the more likely to probably get the nod over Gabriel. Gabriel has more experience and has probably a better range of passing motion, which is why they took him so high. They probably value him higher. But Shedeur, in terms of his ability just to make those throws in the short to intermediate and get you first downs, is what's going to get you there. He's not going to get you down the field. He's not going to win you big plays, but he's going to be able to compete in that short to medium in the way that he reads the game. A lot of offensive coordinators aren't going to like that. But when it's your backup and you're just trying to scheme wins, then you can scheme wins that way. It's much easier to scheme wins that way than have a Gabriel 5'11" who might really struggle here. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm not really bothered on any of the other QBs. I wouldn't be investing in any of the others. Riley Leonard's in an interesting spot. Potentially Kyle McCord's stock really died when he got taken in the 7th round by the Eagles. I'm not interested in Quinn Ewers or Graham Mertz or anyone else. Like, for me, they're all kind of let people draft them and see what they do, because there's not going to be any value in any of them. Right, we're going to move on to running backs here. And the running backs here are I haven't changed too much here, because I actually think that my read is pretty good, and I feel like I'm pretty comfortable with where they are and what they've drafted. Now, obviously, the big shock here people are going to have is that I don't have Gene T as my 1, and I'm still sticking with it. I actually think the landing spot for Hampton couldn't have got much better. And I think the fact that he's landed in the John Harbaugh offense, I'm not worried about Najee Harris. He's not really, other than like 1 or 2 seasons, not really done much. I think that's going to give us a great platform for Hampton to just absolutely ball out immediately. And I think he's going to be in every chance he's going to really ball out. So I really like Hampton. He, for me, is the guy that I look at and think he is probably the guy, when it's all said and done, will have the best opportunity to succeed. So I really love where he's landed. I really love his opportunity. I think for me, he's got that full work down capability of being effectively very similar to Todd Gurley. And in that offense, I can see that utilization and usage really being used for him, and especially with his weight at 221, he's just going to be able to take a lot of hits, and he's got a very, very good pedigree and record. So I'm just all in on Amari and Hampton. I love the landing spot. I love the draft capital. For me, that couldn't, as someone who thinks that Amari Hampton's going to be the best running back in this class when it's all said and done, I look at that and think that couldn't have gone any better. Ashton Jeanty, obviously drafted to the Raiders. Now, my concern with Jeanty is the amount of tread on his tires, one, the amount of, and then going into a team with a pretty meh offensive line. I think that's another issue, but I also think that he's going to have a lot of opportunity to carry the ball. Yeah, there is Raheem Mostert there. Probably nothing to overly worry about there. Jeanty can be an all-round back immediately and be that Swiss Army knife. But Brock Bowers is there, and that is going to take some utilization away from him. So I look at Jeanty, and I think when you've got that elite tight end weapon, that's going to take away quite a number of the throws and routes that maybe Jeanty could take. But I still think Jeanty's an elite prospect. He's in my elite tier. If you told me you got Jeanty at 1, Hampton at 2, like, I'm not going to argue you. It's a personal preference on style and where it goes. I don't think I have either of these guys like massively ahead. I have Hampton slightly ahead. I had him ahead before the draft. I love the landing spot. I'm not going to move him back. I think for me, it works out particularly well for both these players that they are. If I had to insert a tier within this tier, these guys would absolutely be the tier, and they would absolutely own it. So, like, for me, I'm like, you can have a preference over Hampton or Jeanty, and that's fine. I think for me, I look at that and think that it is, they're not too far apart. I think you can go either way and be pretty comfy on it. The next one's probably going to shock people that I still have Henderson in that potentially elite tier and Judkins not. Judkins did go higher in the draft. He went a couple of picks before Henderson, and he's gone to the Browns, which run the football first. There's an immediate opportunity for him to be a success. This is nothing but, I think, sort of that skill set. I look at what he does and what he has, and I think there's a great player in there. But I just think there is a ceiling that is capped. And I think he's going to be a very good weekly starter. You're going to be happy with him on your team. But I look at him and think, okay, I just don't know if he's got that elite factor that I think Henderson has. And Henderson's landing spot with the Patriots, I think, is great. I think he's got a lot more of that. He's a little bit smaller, Henderson. So I think he's got that quickness. He's got that sort of change of pace that I don't think Judkins has as much. And I think for me, I look at the situations, I think with the Patriots, that offense is going to be pretty good this season. And I think they're going to be really able to just get that football rolling. And I think they've been looking for a runner. And I think that, Ramondre Stevenson has kind of shown over the last couple of years that there's nothing to worry about there. You can come in and be elite, and you can get a lot of touches on the football. So I love the volume that he's going to get, Henderson. I think with Judkins, I think they've shown they like to play with 2 backs. That's going to cap his upside a little bit. I still think he's going to be a very good player, Judkins. I think we're really splitting hairs. I don't think it's a huge difference between the two, but I look at them and I think, okay, I'm kind of just, that's where I am with Henderson. I think can have an elite career. There are maybe a couple more question marks on him than the other two, but I think he can get there. Judkins for me just is not quite. I don't see that same ceiling, but still very, very good player. They're 3 and 4 for me. And again, people might reverse them. People might not be as high on Henderson. Then you got the rest of this tier. Now, I've moved after RJ Harvey up quite significantly, purely on where he was drafted. Now, listen, I watched quite a bit of UCF, and I was surprised that he went this high. And the fact that he's gone to the Broncos, there's an immediate need there. There's an immediate requirement for a starter. He's going to get rolling right away. I look at him and think that he's very similar to Chase Brown, probably a bit of a slow burner who will end up going and getting going quite big. He's kind of got that low center of gravity. He's quite a small back, but got quite a bit of weight to him. I really like what he can do. I was surprised that teams saw him, especially the Broncos, saw him as the guy that they want to sort of hatch the wagon to. But when you look at that situation and think they passed on Hampton for Harvey, because that's effectively what they did. They obviously looked at taking a corner in round 1 and then thought, well, we're happy if we get Harvey in round 2. That says a lot of confidence to me that they really value him. He's in a Sean Payton offense. We know what he can do with running backs. Excuse me. I really look at that and think there's something I've got to take notice of there, because I don't want to react too much to draft capital, but that meant a lot that he kind of jumped the queue quite significantly to be the 5th quarterback off this board, and he went quite significantly earlier than the likes of Caleb Johnson, Tootin, and Scattlebow. So, though for me, the fact that his draft capital is that much higher does say to me that there's something to pay attention to here. So I do have him ahead of Caleb Johnson. However, I would say Caleb Johnson is the next guy, and if you have this order differently, I'm not going to put up a big fight, because I think Caleb Johnson is special. I was very surprised that he made it all the way to the 3rd round, but he goes to the Steelers. It's a great opportunity for him. He could very easily take off here and have a really good opportunity here to get the starting role. They also like to run 2 backs, so I think there is a capped opportunity here, but there is an opportunity for him to get a lot of work. So it'd be interesting to see what Arthur Smith does with this offense and how they utilize him. But then, having said that, I watched Arthur Smith with Bijan Robinson, and he didn't really put him to great use either. So that's my only slight concern. But hopefully the talent will prevail here, and there are other coaches involved in making the decisions. And then, despite being drafted in round 4, I haven't penalized Tootin or Scattlebow. For me, that both these players have landed in great opportunities. They've landed with the Jaguars and the Giants. There's opportunities for them to definitely be the lead back here and definitely really kick on. There's a lot of similarities to both of these players in terms of their profile and kind of how they play, but I like the fact that he is rapid too, and I think he's going to be a really special player here for the Jaguars. I think he can usurp Travis Etienne quite quickly and still get some playing time here. It might be a slow burn, but I think he can get there over time. And Scatterbow, I think exactly the same. I think it's a really interesting profile here of player, but he's a bit more of a plodder. But I do think, again, he's going to get snaps. He's going to be really interesting. So I think for me, these are the guys who I think have starter appeal. And then we'll carve out over time a starting role in the NFL for sure. If we're moving then to the next ones, we're moving down to, I think for me, there's 5 more guys that I think are potential sort of flex appeal, and they could carve out. Probably the most interesting is Trevor Etienne to the Panthers. He got drafted a bit higher than I thought he would. He definitely has a bit of interest here. For me, I think he's probably a little bit too small. I don't think he's going to usurp Chuba Hubbard, but hey, he's Chuba Hubbard. If there's any opportunity to usurp a starting running back, this is a pretty good one. Guy took a long time to be an NFL starter, so we're not going to see Jonathan Brooks here in 2025. So you have to question whether Jonathan Brooks actually comes back and plays in the NFL. If Jonathan Brooks comes back in 2026, that will be interesting. But effectively, Trevor Etienne has landed in a spot that really works out quite nicely for him, and he will have every opportunity. And I think as well, the same can be said for Woody Marks. He's behind an aging Joe Mixon. There's going to be an opportunity for him at some point to come along here and really sort of make a splash. So I really like what he can do here. And then you've got Dylan Sampson's another one. Again, with the Browns, there's an opportunity here with these 2 running back sets. I think he could definitely have some opportunity to do something moving forward. And I think that there is some opportunity here for him to keep an eye on that. Same with Devin Neal. I think Devin Neal lands in a great landing spot here against an aging Alvin Kamara. They have not had any other running back on the roster do anything significant. If Devin Neal can really sort of hit the ground running, these are I've got them as flex plays. Maybe you can call them dart throws. I kind of just like them a little bit more because I think they're going to have an opportunity to come in and definitely do something. And the same with Taj Brooks. Taj Brooks going to the Bengals. I think he's going to play in a 2 RB set, and I think he's going to get weekly points. I really liken him there. I think he's a good complementary back there to Chase Brown. And I actually think he's going to get a lot of work. So I really like some of these players to get sort of 1B scat back kind of role, and that holds that flex appeal. I would say here, outside of the top 3, there's not a lot of interest for me when it comes to these dart throws. These are the guys I'm taking sort of round 4, round 5. And the way I look at this with the with rookie drafts, if you got round 4, round 5 and beyond rookie drafts, is I'm not taking any wide receivers, I'm not taking any tight ends, I'm not taking any quarterbacks, unless you get maybe like a Shook or a Milrow, which I don't think they're going to fall that hard. Or maybe if you want to really punt a Shedeur, potentially, but I'm just not really in on that. Wide receiver production, when you're looking at wide receivers who are getting when wide receiver value out of like the 4th round of rookie drafts in fantasy football, they don't produce. They produce at like a 2.5% rate. It's really low. So I'm just out on all these guys. The only 2 I would say, and I'll get to them, like maybe like a Tez Johnson, and maybe a Savion Williams. That's kind of it. I'm kind of not really interested in anyone else. So for me, I'm just going to punt as many of these guys in the orange that I can, because they all have some form of opportunity. They were drafted. They have some form of capital. They have an opportunity, if players go down at the most injured position, to have some form of production. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. That's the running backs done. We're sort of half hour in, which is good. We're maintaining the pace of getting this in an hour. We're going to start with the wide receivers. Now, the wide receivers is really interesting because obviously in my pre-ranks, I had Travis Hunter significantly lower. I really needed to see where he was going to go. And that kind of made it important to me to see where he would go. He goes 2nd overall. He goes to the Jaguars. He's announced as a wide receiver. He's going to be a wide receiver that will play some CB snaps. So for me, goes top of the class, right? The value's there. The draft capital's there. Everything is there that says that he's going to be the elite wide receiver in this class. Now, the 2 things I'm going to have a knock on Travis Hunter, that he's going to have difficulty into potentially getting to the point where he is getting to that period of being elite. 1, he's got to deal with Brian Thomas Jr., who's the 1 on that roster. So he's effectively going to be the wide receiver 2 on this initial roster. How does that work? He's going to have to usurp Thomas and earn the additional snaps in order, and not just the snaps, but the additional targets. He's going to need to get more targets than PTJ in order to get there. That's the first hurdle he's going to have to jump in order to get to this elite tier. The second thing is he's going to have to deal with playing on a team that has underperformed offensively, but they do have a new head coach. They have a very good head coach, as much as I don't want to admit that, because he was a phenomenal offensive coordinator, Liam Cohen, and he will work a lot of that short to intermediate field, which Hunter can absolutely operate in. And he can definitely get enough volume to both of those guys to eat. And the fact that they've let a really good tight end go, that's going to free up some immediate targets for Travis Hunter. So I see a pathway to him being elite. It'd be interesting to see whether, these guys could be 1A, 1B, almost similar to the Mike Evans, Chris Godwin kind of show. And that's something we can see. So, Matthew Golden was taken as the wide receiver 4 in this class, but I have him as a higher potential overall. These guys I found really hard to kind of, these next 4 to kind of put a a group amongst them all, and I'm going to be probably a bit controversial here, that I think Matthew Golden has the clearest pathway to success. And I mean that because we've got a quarterback in Jordan Love, who we know is a very good quarterback. He's under contract. He's been paid. We know they're set, right? In a good offensive scheme that continues to put up points every single year. There is some competition here. He's going to have to kind of clear the decks a little bit. There is that little bit of concern of he's going to have to get through the Jaden Reeds and Romeo Dobbses and the likes of Christian Watsons. There's a lot of running back, a lot of wide receivers on this roster already. But when you're drafted in Green Bay as the first round wide receiver for the first time in 22, 23 years, it tells me they're all in on this guy and they have a plan. The Packers are a good organization. They make smart decisions. And when good teams make smart decisions and then they do something that's, I don't want to say unexpected. It was unexpected for me. It wasn't for stocks, but it was unexpected for a few people. You have to look at, there's a plan. And there's a plan for Matthew Golden. I can see a pathway to him being very successful and an elite wide receiver. So I'm very excited for him. I think this landing spot is really important. And I actually think he has got that potential to be elite. Now, there's the size comps and people will have a go at that. But I actually look at him and think that I'm not too worried about that. The question mark on him is his size and his speed. That's really the question. If you look at his breakout scores and his analytics, he doesn't score particularly well, which is why people are down on him. I'm not as concerned about that because I think when good players go to good organizations, there's a plan to be utilized, and I think he's probably the most talented receiver on here. He's going to have to navigate some of those size challenges, and he's going to have to really get better. So, yeah, there's some risk. I think there's risk with all of these guys. But I think baked in with the upside is the landing spot, the tandem that he's going to, and the relationship he's going to get to build with Jordan Love, I think is going to be a beautiful thing. The worry is they going to give him that elite volume? That's the concern. Emeka Egbuka. I did not see the Buccaneers drafting a wide receiver, nor did I see them drafting one in the first round like they did in Emeka Egbuka. I mean, this team knows wide receivers. I mean, you look at the wide receivers they have drafted, this front office. They've drafted Mike Evans. They've drafted Chris Godwin. They drafted even Jalen McMillan was fairly productive last season, who, by the way, whose dynasty stock just it is like a stone. You have to look at, they've always successfully pulled players out of the draft who've then gone on and had careers. Adam Humphries had a pretty good career. There's guys knocking around teams like Kansas City who started at the Bucs, who, have gone on to make careers in the NFL at wide receiver. It does happen. And so when they take one this high, you have to take notice that there is a player here that they really like. How does it work short-term versus long-term? Well, obviously last year they lost both Chris Godwin and Mike Evans to injury, and they didn't really have anyone to get the ball to. So they're obviously thinking this is their window to win something, and they need to just get deeper. And so that's in their mind. And so that's why they've signed Egbuka. But I also look at sort of, there's an opportunity for him to be the 3. I think it could be one of these that it starts slow, but potentially with injuries and games mixed, he could probably have a pretty even year 1, and then he starts to get and earn more snaps year 2, year 3. And I think in year 3 is when it blows up. I think Egbuka is going to be a really slow burn on your dynasty team. And I think if you're in a win now mode, you're probably going to have to pass. But if you're in a rebuild mode and you're looking to get good 2-3 years from now, Egbuka is probably your guy because he's on an electric offense that will remain electric because it has done. Say what you want about the Buccaneers for the last 10 years with this front offense, but they've always put up they've always put up points. So I really look at what they do and think, you want to tie good players to good offenses, and that's exactly what's happened here, and that's why I'm giving him the nod here, and think that he, for me, will have a better fantasy football upside than Ted McMillan. So moving on to McMillan. McMillan probably was my 2 in this draft coming in, and I think that you look at the analytics, you look at everything that he produces, you look at his ceiling, and you think this guy is like, if you could build a wide receiver in the factory, this is who you build. brilliant at getting up and making plays. And, he's been drafted very high in the NFL draft as a result of that. You've got a real playmaker. You've got an offensive head coach in Dave Canales who is craving out for a weapon. There's no real competition on the roster. I'm going to give you the 3 reasons why Tech McMillan is 4 on this list and not 2. 1 is the quarterback. I just don't think that they are there, Bryce Young and this offense, at being dynamic enough at putting up enough points. 2, the supporting cast is so bad, they need to get another wide receiver in here who is going to at least complement Tech McMillan and get him open, because you could just double and triple Tech McMillan and say, oh, you're going to beat me with Adam Thielen? Okay. I just think that's a real issue. And then I also think about I also just think there's just not enough playmakers on this roster for this offense to get a lot of first downs and to get a lot of opportunities to score. And I think that's the concern. Tech McMillan a year or 2 from now could be really, really good. We don't know what the future kind of holds, but I trust the Packers and the Buccaneers front offices and offenses a lot more than I do Carolina. I think if he landed in a different landing spot, he'd probably be ahead of these 2. But long term, every time the Panthers sort of invest, it never works out. It's not a smirch on the Panthers, but they invested all that in Bryce Young and he hasn't moved the needle. They've invested lots and lots of pieces and it doesn't ever really work out for them. So that's what I still think. And then, look, I've still got him in my potentially elite tier, but I just think there's more inherent risk to Tech McMillan getting to that ceiling than there is. But the one thing you'll say is opportunity and volume is king, and he's going to have a whole ton of that because he is going to be the best wide receiver on that roster by a country mile. And I've kept Luther Burden, who I actually had number 1 at the start of all of this before the start. And that's because I didn't know about Travis Hunter. I did caveat that Travis Hunter for me was the hardest player to evaluate. I've still got him in this elite tier. And the reason I've still got him in this elite tier, he lands in a great landing spot with the Bears. He's comped very much like DJ Moore, and now he's going to be playing opposite DJ Moore. But I just think in a Ben Johnson offense, there's an opportunity to sustain him. There's an opportunity for him to get the volume and to really be in a dynamic offense that will get a lot of points. And Caleb Williams, they've got a lot of talent investment in him. They've retooled this offensive line. They've retooled the weapons that he's got. He gets to play with DJ Moore. He gets to play with Colston Loveland, who we're going to get at 2. And I just sit there and look at this and think, wow, this could be like an amazing offense. And you want to buy pieces of this. Burden could really jump and be elite. I was a lot higher on Burden than most people because I looked at what he did. And I know people sat there and said, oh, we didn't perform in his senior year. Yeah, I mean, there's a reason. I guess we'll never know for sure. I think he probably just kind of took it easy to not get injured and played a bit soft. And whether you like it or not, you can half understand it. But that junior year was elite. That 2023 season showed what a good receiver he is. If he keeps the character and everything together and he works with Ben Johnson, there is an opportunity for him to wind up as one of the best receivers in this class. So, we talked about this class being a bit meh. There's 5 guys in here that could really, really turn the screws and be really elite. 4 of them went in the first round. 1 went high up in the second round. So, for a class that we're a bit meh about, there's 5 guys to get really excited about. There's 4 guys I have underneath this, which is Higgins, Harris, Beck, and Amanya. So I really like Trey Harris to the Chargers, and I think he probably just gets the nod more with the draft capital. He's going to get to start day 1. He's going to get a great opportunity here in the John Harbaugh offense, partnered with Justin Herbert. Like, I just think for me, he probably gets a slight jump on Higgins at the Texans. I think he's going to find it a harder time to acclimatize, and he's going to play against Nico Collins. He's going to play against Tank Dell. He's going to find it difficult, I think, to earn his way to get something significant. But over time, I think he absolutely will. So I think he will have starter ability over time, but it is going to take a bit of time. Jack Beach gets here purely on 2 things. 1, landing spot, Raiders. There's just no wide receivers on this roster that are worth anything. So for me, like, he's going to get ball in hand immediately, and he's going to get a decent amount of volume. The second thing is just the character with really what happened after losing his brother in the New Year's Day terrorist attack in New Orleans. That's going to drive anyone. The character and everything is going to drive him to be a success. So I'm absolutely there on him. The last one here is Iomino, and for me, I cannot believe he fell as far as he did. But if he had to fall anywhere, you have to look at this and go, well, he landed at the Texans, at the Titans, and that for me. So I look at this and go, okay, he's going to have a really good opportunity to earn snaps on a team that is pretty poor and is looking to get the ball vertical. And with Cam Ward there, they're going to get vertical, and Iomino is going to definitely get that opportunity to do this. I think for me, I would have liked to have seen him go a little bit higher in the draft. There aren't many times you see a wide receiver after pick 100 be successful. But having said that, I think for me, if anyone's going to do it, Iomino is probably the guy. And for me, he has got this great opportunity to get over that sort of 10, 12 points a game, just purely on the landing spot. I think if he'd gone anywhere else in that round, I probably would have struggled a bit more, but he's going to have an opportunity to start. I know they took another wide receiver ahead of him, but I think Iomino has the tools and the skill set just to get there and get playing and move the needle. So it's a bit of a risk, but he is very much a risk here over these other three. The other three, I see a clear pathway to getting touches and making impact. Iomino is a bit of a risk, but I'm willing to take that risk on him. Then I look at these, and there's probably 5 more wide receivers I want to take here, which is Kyle Williams, Tesla, Bryant, DK or Dyke, and then Williams. And all of these, for their own different reasons, are interesting. Tesla is going to the Lions. That's going to be interesting. How is he going to fit in? Is there going to be a set role for him? Is there an immediate opportunity for him? No. But I think that, with everything that's happened with Jameson Williams, there's an opportunity there for him to get some snaps. They've been looking at this third rotational piece and just bring guys in. They clearly want a third wide receiver who's going to get on the field more than there has been. And Tesla's definitely going to have that opportunity to do that. Pat Bryant going to the Broncos, immediate fit there for me. I really love the fit, and I love the ability for him to get into a starting rotation here. So I'm a big fan of his. For him to just really jump up and be a really, really, really good receiver. And again, there's an opportunity there. They got a lot of guys who are just a bit mad. Marvin Mims isn't really getting on the field. Troy Hampton hasn't really done much there either. So you got a lot of these sort of guys who are just sort of floating around. Why can't Brian be the guy? They obviously have clearly filled a need that they haven't got that guy on the roster. So I do like that. Severin Williams, he's gone to the Packers, but he was drafted with some reasonable draft capital. He's got the opportunity to field as part of that rotational, but we'll see what happens there. Kyle Williams, again, big rotational piece going in as a Patriot. But again, they took so many wide receivers last year and they're clearly not happy. That says to me that there's something there that they want to try and find and unlock. And I want to be tied to Drake May. I think that offense gets a lot better. So they're the 5. I know I got Severin Williams in the dart throw. He's probably the only dart throw I'm interested in. I'm not really interested in anyone else. I'd kind of just cut this list. And obviously, Isaiah Bond didn't get drafted. He's a name you're going to have to watch, because if he ends up going somewhere, he might have an opportunity to get good. But obviously, with the off-the-field stuff, the NFL decided to pass on him completely, and as of yet remains unsigned. That gives us a little bit of time to dive into the tight ends. And so we are here with the 2 that were drafted in round 1. I haven't moved these. I've still got Warren ahead of Loveland. Obviously, the appeal with Loveland is the fact that he's going to the Ben Johnson offense, and we've seen what he does with Laporta, that he's going to be an immediate call out. I think for me, Loveland is younger. He obviously has done a really good amount of work in college in terms of, the worst way of saying that, but he can split across the line. He can line up in the slot, can line up in line, can line up out wide. He gets a really good amount of yards from the slot, which is really good. Good yak ability, can get downfield. But having said that, hasn't seen a lot of downfield targets in his career. Only 6 targets of 20 yards or more. So there is a little bit of concern. Also, contested catches is a little bit of an issue. Only 2 of 10 from his contested catches last year, but he's a huge guy, so he should be winning more than that. And I think with a bit of coaching can get there. I look at Loveland and think, for me, he's a bit of a project. I think year 1 might be a bit of a struggle, but I think he will come good. And you have to notice the fact that he is at the Bears. He was the first tight end off the board, and also the fact that he is going to Ben Johnson. We know what he can do with their dynamic stars that they're building on that offense. You have to get a little bit excited about Loveland. I think he's an interesting pick in redraft this year. I think he's an interesting pick in Dynasty this year. But having said all that, I think that year 2 will be better than year 1. And then that leads me to Tyler Warren. Tyler Warren, for me, is an absolute baller. He could do everything. This guy had passing touchdowns. He had receiving touchdowns. He had rushing touchdowns. He also punted the ball. Like, he can do everything. Like, I love Tyler Warren. I've talked about this. For me, he can do everything. He absolutely dominates against man coverage. He dominates in zone coverage, not as much, but he will do. He is going to be absolutely phenomenal in the NFL. He's gone to the Colts. Their wide receiver sets, or the wide receiver room, is uninspiring. And I think that having a weapon there and being able to utilize that, he's not going to get off the field. He's a great run blocker. He's a great blocker in general. He's going to create pass protection. He's going to do so much in this offense for the Colts that I just absolutely love it. And I think that Tyler Warren is going to be exceptional. So I'm really excited to what he can do in the NFL. And I think for me, I just have his ceiling being a bit higher. But I see his year 1 being higher than Colston Loveland's for sure. And I think we'll see what happens as we get through. Right. When you get to the tight end position and the starters here, we have 4 guys selected within a round of each other. Most of them in the second round. Harold Fanning moved to the 3rd round, but he's gone to the Browns. David Njoku is getting to the end of his career. There is an opportunity here for him to see the field after Njoku. And then Njoku is also injury prone, so it might be a slow burn for Harold Fanning, but it's a great landing spot. Year 1, and for redraft, you're probably not getting involved, but for year 2 onwards, you definitely want to get involved. I think that for me, he's the 3rd best tight end in this class. He's got a lot of upside, can do a lot of things. So for me, Harold Fanning is a player I am interested in just getting hold of. Again, he's still very young. He's not even 21. So he's going to have and the way that he makes people miss in terms of a high missed tackle rate and being able to go through and just really deliver is phenomenal. I think probably the concern was he's coming out of the MAC in Bowling Green. So you have to look at that and say it's not a big conference, but, he did have 117 receptions for 1,555 yards and 10 touchdowns last year. So, for me, he does a heck of a lot. He's a very, very interesting player. He goes to a great landing spot. There might be some churn at quarterback, but you see what happens with the Browns. But yeah, I think it might be a slow start for him, but I think he's going to do really well. Then I have Elijah Rojo. He went to Miami. He was at Miami. He went to the Seahawks. And so, again, I'm looking at immediate opportunity. He walks in there. He probably is the starter there. I think he can beat out Noah Fant, who hasn't done much in the NFL. So there is definitely an opportunity for him to come in here and do something here. He had a very, very good last season. Again, when you look at Simmons, Cam Ward, first downs or touchdowns with his targets, 53.2% was the highest rate in this class. The issue is he has had significant knee injuries. So the problem you're going to have with him is availability on the field. He only had 11 receptions before last year because of those knee injuries. So there is a concern here, but if he can get on the field, he is going to start. He is going to make plays, that's for sure. Nathan Taylor actually went ahead of him. He is on the New York Jets. So again, the fact that there's not much to beat out here, he's going to have the opportunity to start. The draft capital is there, which is great. Again, quite young, only 21. Has a very low drop rate, 1.3%. Having said that, he did only have 79 targets in last year, but one drop off that, which is great. If you watch the combine, you would have seen how good he was and how much everyone raved about him. So he has an absolute great opportunity here. The issue with him is he's never really earned a high level of targets. He's only getting an opportunity on 17.9% of his routes, which isn't very high. And so, the problem is going to be his volume. There's no doubt that there's a player in there, but he's going to need to have a reasonable amount of volume for him to be a starter. So we remain to be seen whether that's something that is going to happen here. But we will keep an eye on it. The last one we're going to have is Terrence Ferguson out of Oregon. For me, he has a high drop rate, complete opposite, 6.2% drop rate, which is pretty high. But he does get targeted a lot more, 22.5% of routes, which is sick, which is about in line where we're talking about him here. But he's very good on screens. So if you don't have a running back that's particularly good on screens, the Rams have got the opportunity to use him in screens. He gets used on, a lot for those first downs and touchdowns, 47.7%. But he is that sort of short field catcher. But that really is in line with what Oregon have done. There's an opportunity for him to play here. Higbee is, still in the league, but he has injury concerns. They did spend a lot of money on the tight end last year in free agency that hasn't really panned out. So I think you're going to see an opportunity here for Ferguson to hit the front here, but it might take a bit of time. I would say I'd look at all of these, and really only Mason Taylor's the guy I expect to start in year one, and it's just about volume. I think all these other guys, maybe Arroyo actually could start year one, given he's only competing with Murf. I think the other two are definitely more longer term, but can work their way up to weekly starters, but it is going to take a bit of time. So you just need to be a little cautious on that. The last guy I'm going to talk about is Gunnar Helm. So Gunnar Helm here has gone to the Titans, who are in need of a tight end. And again, you're aligning him to a brand new quarterback who's going to have to rely on that tight end more and more, and they haven't been able to do that. Gunnar Helm is going to have that opportunity to get in and get games. There aren't a lot of significant tight ends on that roster, so he should get opportunities here. But he was stuck behind Jatavian Sanders, who hasn't really lit up the NFL yet when it comes to being a successful tight end. So the fact that he's behind him is a bit of an issue. But he did last year have a great season, 60 passes caught for 786 yards and 7 touchdowns. But was only targeted on 14.9% of his routes, which is really, really low. So he doesn't produce a lot of targets, doesn't earn a lot of targets as well. But the one thing I would say is he is more of that traditional tight end. So he plays in line. Nearly 70% of his snaps are in line. So he's not going to do all the flashy bits inside and out. The things I would say about him that are going to be the biggest hindrance to Gunnar Helm and why he's a flex appeal is, even though he's in a position where he could start, his run blocking is easily by far the worst in this class. He is absolutely terrible at blocking. Considering he plays basically just one position, which is in line, his pass blocking is absolutely atrocious. Run blocking is absolutely atrocious. So he's going to need to improve that if he's going to get more game time. That's a concern. Outside of those tight ends, I'm not touching anybody else. I know some got drafted. I've put them as dart throws. I wouldn't touch them. My strategy would be really simple. I would load up on running backs and wide receivers, and if you can get one of the 2 elite tight ends, then all power to you. But effectively, once you're done with round 3, just take running backs, take as many running backs as you can go, and just go through there. That's kind of the role here. You've got a whole heap of names here, which you can go for and take at the and take in drafts, and most of them should still be on the board in round 4, round 5, maybe even round 6 of drafts. Stay away from the wide receivers and stay away from the other positions in those later rounds. Load up with those. that's going to do it. I hope this has been a useful breakdown. I hope this has given you absolutely everything that you need just to get started with your rookie drafts. Again, if you aren't subscribed to the Patreon, please do. We're going to drop the playbook there first before anywhere else, as a thank you to our supporters. You're going to get to join a WhatsApp chat where you can pick my brain 24/7, and I will do my best. But also, we chat a lot of game theory and how to just get better. Really excited to bring the playbook. It will be out soon. But until then, Rush Nation, thank you so much for tuning in. Do subscribe, patrons. As always, thank you so much from my heart. And let's talk about this and ask questions to the video. Until then, Rush Nation, don't forget, as always, keep rushing.